Southern Colorado. This is Friday, 26 October, and we had a little snow last night. Our low is like 14, so seriously cold again. I'm concerned about New England. I mean, I'm really concerned about New England and New York City. I'm really concerned. It's really kind of hard to put into words the seriousness of what this storm means. If the models are truly grasping what is happening, then we're in for more than a life-threatening storm. They're saying it'll be a $1 billion storm. It'll be more than that. It'll be more than that. I would say it's going to be upwards of an $8, $9, $10 billion storm. The ingredient that makes this storm wicked is an impulse that's coming in from the Pacific coast. It was moving ashore through British Columbia last night, Thursday night, into today. And so here in southern Colorado, it will scoot along to our north, where it is largely clear. And the clouds and the snow from yesterday and that cold front are now well off to our east. This is a reinforcing surge of cold air coming in from the Pacific. So what we see time and time again is these chemtrails like to work the southern edge of the storm. If you're in the southern hemisphere, they work the northern edge. And this is what we're seeing in southern Colorado today. We're seeing a return to the chemtrail flights. Otherwise there's no need. If they weren't trying to put this sandy monster storm, this FrankenStorm together, then they probably wouldn't be engineering out here in Colorado. They wouldn't have been engineering 1,000 to 2,000 miles off the coast of Washington and British Columbia over the last 2 to 3 days. They have these things planned weeks ahead of time so they can stage their planes, so they can stage their energy, so they can slowly work with what's coming, so they can manipulate Sandy to where she needs to be to serve their agendas. And so I'm watching these trails out here. And it's just kind of, there hadn't been much all today. Well, any long-lasting ones, but it looks like the marking ones are now coming into play. And so we've got two coming together. They'll probably put together a little star here or do a little cross at a 60-some-odd degree angle. There's some of the snow that we got last night. It was just a little bit, maybe an inch or 2 or 3 up top, but we're probably not going to get out of the low 40s today, with as chilly as it is, and the sunshine in the northern hemisphere is this time of year is analogous to the middle of February. So it is rather weak and short-lived. But the chemtrails are back. And you can see some going on here. But I'm going to do another map discussion. But this is a storm to run from, folks. This is not one you want to wait out. And I don't know how much rain is going to come, but it's going to be many months worth of rainfall in hours. And I haven't looked at the soil profiles through New England to see if they're saturated or relatively dry. But that's going to play a part in how the water and how the soils and how the rivers and streams can deal with this much water next to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. In any case, we'll look at a satellite in a little bit. But, boy, God be with you. God be with you. Coming up on 4 in the afternoon, southern Colorado, and they're engineering the cold slug of air that's going to hammer the east as it begins to intermingle with Hurricane Sandy. I'm just showing you a chemtrail that would look like a southwest plane. See another bit of a crossflight here. It came across this little spread in this southwest chemtrail, the one that runs this way. Got another one coming in here. And this guy's going to be interested in something that the southwest chemtrail is doing here. And so they're just aligning the atmosphere, setting up the geometry so that this storm does precisely with as little error as desirable. And it's not so much the damage of the storm, it's the reconstruction afterwards that they want. My concern is that this nation is, for all intents and purposes, bankrupt. How do you reconstruct when you're bankrupt? How do you go about that path? But I suppose as long as the Fed is in the condition to where it can simply print money, or we can have, and the Chinese aren't even buying our treasuries anymore, it's the Japanese and the UK. But so all we're doing is exchanging their paper for our paper. All right, so this trail, there's this zone essentially from from here to here. And you can see how this larger trail luminesces slightly differently in there. And this guy went right through the middle of it. And then this is the smear that this particular plane was interested in. And then we've got another one coming in up above it. Let's see where it goes. So this other trail went through pretty much in the same place. Pretty much in the same place as the one back up here did. So they're interested in this location, which may be a wavelength off of this. It's kind of hard to tell until I give it some more time. But off on the horizon, they're all kind of smearing and blending, and we wouldn't have any clouds. None of this would be here, save for the chemtrails. And now this one is going atop of the rippling down below. He defined that eastern extent of the boundary as this is off to my west. And so there's a precision with this game happening in the west that plays directly with what Sandy will do. Directly with what Sandy will do. Sandy, on her own, would go out to sea. It is what is happening into the west, what is being engineered into the west off of British Columbia yesterday, off the Alaskan Aleutians on Wednesday. That is what is going to impact and turn Sandy into this hybrid hellish storm. We'll do a satellite discussion next. Some of the crosswaves that the chemtrails are revealing that are being engineered in Colorado to impact Sandy. It's all connected. More of the trails outside Colorado. See how this trail punctures this one right there in that weak spot. Punctures right through it. The precision is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Alright everybody, we're kind of honing in on this Sandy storm. We got a pretty good idea of what's going on. Go ahead over on Facebook. That's where we'll kind of keep things up to date, and also subscribe over to YouTube and Weather Wars. We're probably having to change this over to our names. Google seems to be pushing us in that direction lately. Let's look at Sandy. There she is, off the coast, moving through the Bahamas. You can see lots of thunderstorm activity. I want to kind of go back. I want to slow this animation down. I want to show you what's been going on with this particular storm. And we've had photographs. People have shared us with some pictures what's going on in the Carolinas. And it has been a day full of chemtrails. What we're looking at here is the water vapor imagery. So as we know, these chemtrails tend to sequester moisture. And all of this shield has been the formation, essentially of clouds as a result of these trails. But more importantly, we're also finding it going on probably surrounding the whole thing, but certainly on this northern extent. You can see these lines right in through here. Look at these lines. These are more than just regular commercial contrails. They're repetitive, and the trails seem to be interested in one another, how they deform. So where this storm goes is of keen interest. This is a big storm, but it wouldn't be a monumental storm unless it were to run into or be merged with a storm over the west. And we talked about that yesterday. We're going to back out, zoom, give you a timestamp here so you can see when this happened. This was at 22:30, so this is 4:30 Mountain Time, which is where I am. I'm in southern Colorado. And you will have just watched a video of all of the chemtrails that I had across the west. Most of them are the west and north of us today. But in the visible imagery, it is laden, just St. George, Utah, Las Vegas, Tonopah, Nevada, out over the Central Valley of California, just laden with trails. Now, that being as it is, I'm going to go to the forecast models. And what we're interested in is how these little impulses right in through here merge with this guy. This is what I believe they're doing in the Mountain West, is that they are retarding this jet stream, essentially pulling it in this direction, just like a little bit of a rubber band, to kind of swing this out a little bit more. So when it rounds the base of this trough, Sandy will be in place to loop her back in. And that's what it looks like is going to happen. This model was valid 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday night. we go to the same time, because these maps are in 24-hour intervals. This storm does not look all that impressive. It's kind of stretched out, but Sandy's beginning to lift up, and she's a good distance off the coast. She would have a strong northeast inflow or northeasterly wind, but she still is moving up the coast. We'll step another 24 hours, and you can see as this trough has to begin to turn northward, following the height lines, following the pressure lines, following the contours of the atmosphere, we can begin to see that spin, and that's when the reds begin to darken. And so we have this low that is now all of a sudden has this trough opened up, this low depression, not a high coming in, but a low, and that essentially tips Sandy back this direction. So she's going to pivot in. Now, earlier in the week, most of the models had Sandy come ashore. We'll skip to the next day. Over New York, over Long Island, over the Hamptons, over Bridgeport, maybe as south as Cape May, but it was certainly biased towards the New York area, and then into far southern New England. But what tonight's model's done, we're on the 0Z cycle, we're on the 0Z model cycle, is that this low farther to the south is going to pull Sandy into Pennsylvania, if this is correct. And in that case, then what is curious and what is new is instead of loitering over New York City and then moving up through Massachusetts, Connecticut, and then into Maine, it does a 180. It pulls back into Pennsylvania. So my hypothesis is all of the engineering that has been happening over the last couple of days, British Columbia yesterday, Washington through Colorado, and southern Utah and Nevada today, has slowed this down and has increased the intensity of this event so that Sandy comes all the way back in, not quickly moving out to sea, but retrograding across the Keystone State, across Pennsylvania. And what I'm finding interesting is that as the atmosphere, 534 is fairly cold. I mean, that's a 340 decameters. That's fairly deep. And so we end up with this very persistent, very cold low. I'm going to come back out of here. We'll go to surface pressure very quickly. And then from there, where I visit for this is weathermaps.org. They've been reliable. They're not fancy, but they're reliable, and that's important to me. So we'll see Sandy moving up the coast from tonight to tomorrow night to Sunday night. And by Monday, that's when the storm bombs out. That's when it's at its deepest pressure. We've got Long Island here, New York, and Jersey. So we essentially have this storm that is not a hurricane, but has become a hybrid. The cold air is entrained. This dark line is the 540 line. That is essentially a rough guess for the snow line. Certainly there could be snow in the higher portions of the Carolinas, the Virginia Highlands, the higher mountaintops of West Virginia, and possibly even into Pennsylvania, while the bulk of the rest of the country is enjoying a nice weekend. This storm is sitting off and into New England and the Mid-Atlantic states, and then rotating towards Ontario, Erie, back into Michigan, and the cold air settles in. Here's the 540 height line, and so we're deep, well, we're not deep in, but we're cold enough for snow, not too far off the surface. So in the mountainous locations, in the higher locations, we could be looking at snow. We'll go right to the end, and you can see this snow, all the dark in here. So the zero line, the freezing line, is going to cover a lot of these higher elevations. So what is curious, this is for Thursday night. There's a lot of vegetation on the trees. That has me concerned. A lot of wind blowing. We could be seeing a foot of rain in some of the higher locations, and some spots, depending on how they tweak this thing, could end up with even a bit more than that. All right, I want to step out. Let's go back to this past morning. Let's hit on this and do the timestamp. And so this was 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Time on the 26th of Friday. And what I want to do, I'm just going to zoom back in here. We see the lines running this way and then this way. All of the chemtrails that have collected moisture. And so they're working this environment. To what degree and with technology, I'm not going to speculate. But they're absolutely working it. And so even down into Florida, it's a they're engineering this. And because there's no pollution regulations in the sky, they can get away with it. For days, after years, after decades, they've been able to get away with this. We'll come out to Sandy. Here's the center. But here's the signature for engineering. Is its counterpart right here. Inside we've got multiple holes, multiple vortices, if you will. Straight line, and then the other imprint. Now if you watch the Boyd Bushman video with nodes and anodes, we have anode and we have an anode. And then the nodes, or the upward drafts, are the larger intense thunderstorms that are around it, but holes after holes. And you know I have this thing with holes if you've been watching me for very long. And this is what we're finding all through this storm, are these incredibly pronounced, geometrically aligned subsidence holes. And they litter this storm from top to bottom. Lots and lots of subsidence holes. So as we move up the Carolinas, in this northern fringe, we're on the edge. In the water vapor imagery, we see the chemtrails better than we do in the visible imagery. There's a nice, very pronounced one right through there. But, all right, there's that one. All right, those are the chemtrails off the northern part of Sandy. But it's the west. It's the west. It's this area through here. This is what's key. This was deep blue skies in the wake of the cold front that's now marching east to wake up to Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, much of California. Beautiful skies, much cloudier, a little more stormy up north. This was gorgeous, dry weather, and way, way, way too dry to sustain the clouds. So this is a huge chemtrail, essentially formation. And you can see as we get to the first part of the frame, boom, right in here, all of the action shows up. And we're going to go through them kind of individually. We want to start right in through here. Boom, 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 boom. And then the lines begin to show up. And we've got lots of photography from this, from the ground and the time lapse. And by the end of the day, I'm here. I'm in this location. You can see to the west. You can see the chemtrail plains. And so it got rather thick. Just on the way home this evening and looking at the sunset to the west, and this is what the whole western horizon is like. Trail after trail after trail after trail, and it goes on for hundreds of miles. And this is all in anticipation of sending this storm in the proper way to merge with Sandy. That's what it's all about. So as we look at these storms, we see this bright chemtrail here on the angle, the sharp, the new one. And notice that it crosses this formation, this guy here, at this point. There's something happening right in here. I mean, there's a precision to each and every one of these bloody flights. Not a one is flown haphazardly. The broad trail from the upper left, or the upper right, excuse me, to the lower left, intersecting the one that's nearly horizontal at this point here. And then the trail, I can't even really point to it, I'm zoomed in so far. It just denotes a difference. There's a break in the trail from the upper right to lower left, and it happens at the cross trail. And you notice then this cross trail then ends with the intersection of this longer one. There's such a precision to it. There's such a precision. So they're micromanaging the weather on a scale that boggles the imagination. Boggles the imagination, utterly boggles. Come on in. And so we have Sandy. We've got Sandy. And that's going to be, here we are. I just thought I was seeing another trail coming in to intersect here at this point, but maybe not. This guy's coming. He's headed, maybe he'll cross this point here. Either way, this trail is hitting the outer edges. See how this one here has kind of fanned out, and he's touching the outer edges of where this other one is fanned out. Sunset is beautiful. So I wonder why cars have to be held to such stringent pollution rules, and the air space is free of all of this. So are the oceans, and for freighters for that matter. But this is something that needs to be on the agenda of how these guys are able to pollute without any kind of restrictions. See, this indent is an interesting spot. That's the reason for the flight, as it encounters the other trail that was previously there. Is now fading away. That was why it was flown.